Hi, my name is Wiley Trujillo, and today we are with Senor Dilworth, and we will be learning what the average person knows about Nicaragua.
All right, well, Nicaragua, it is a lovely country in Central America, next to Costa Rica. I guess the biggest thing that comes to mind when I think of Nicaragua was the conflict in, I want to say, the 70s between the Sandinistas and the Contras. The Sandinistas being the socialist group, and then the Contras being the American or US-backed right-wing group. And that's, that controversy between those two is what comes to mind most when I think of Nicaragua.
There you have it, folks, the average person's knowledge on Nicaragua.
In the 19th century, Nicaragua was very poor. Nicaragua was also struck by the Civil War and foreign interference. Through Nicaragua's history, the control of the government has been an ongoing issue. Liberals and conservatives struggled to control the government. The clash between liberals and conservatives gets even bigger because of a man named William Walker, who was an important liberal who wanted to defeat the conservatives. William Walker's plan backfired and made all of the liberals upset with William, and the conservatives were unchallenged until 1993. In 1912, the conservatives performed so badly that the liberals and conservatives rebellion occurred. The United States stepped in. They sent troops to physically occupy the area. From 1912 to 1933, the United States remained in Nicaragua due to this reason. When it was time to withdraw the American troops, the problem was resolved. While Nicaragua was concerned about the governmental power, the United States and Britain had been planning to work on a transoceanic waterway, which they would be able to insert themselves into the vacuum power left by Spain. The race to get to Nicaragua first became an issue. Because of this issue, the Clayton-Buller Treaty of 1850, which said that if you found any resource in that area that the United States and Britain were planning on building, they could not keep any resources that they found. The United States went to Nicaragua in hope of getting resources and opening its circle. This was due to the gold rush. After the gold rush, the United States started to wonder what else was out there. Soon the Sandinistas began to organize the rebellion. As for the government, the majority of the Nicaraguan people voted to replace their revolutionary government with one acceptable to Washington. Nicaragua transitioned to electoral democracy. Nicaragua expressed more satisfaction with their government and great support for democracy.
On July 19th, people in Nicaragua come together to celebrate the fall of the Somoza family dictatorship. Somoza dynasty is a family regime that had controlled Nicaragua for over decades. According to many historical accounts, the family ruled the country in a very harsh way. In 1979, the Somoza dictatorship made their attack stronger, affecting the entire population. Later that year, an agreement was created by the Sandinista National Liberation Front, motivating the entire population to start an attack. In fact, a general strike was organized with the participation of workers as an indicator of hate of the dictatorship. There was a rebellion in several departments and cities. Somoza organized a powerful attack against those cities, killing many civilians. Nevertheless, the FSLN was supported by the entire population and could not be stopped. On July 19, 1979, Sandinista troops entered Nicaragua's capital, marking the victory of the Sandinista Revolution. They were greeted by hundreds of thousands of Nicaraguans. Nicaragua was gradually being disrupted by war. In 1988, after a strong attack on the national government, peace negotiations started to take place. The Sandinistas were trying to transform the country to a new society based on will and welfare. Governing this goal in sight, however, the Sandinista government led by President Daniel Ortega was defeated in the 1990 elections. This was the end of the revolution. A major part of the Nicaraguan population started to reject the Sandinista movement due to many mistakes made by its leaders. However, the FSLN continued to be one of the strongest Nicaraguan political parties.
Although it is an improvement to the Somoza regime, there is still a fair amount of corruption involved in current Nicaraguan politics, particularly referring to the consensus politics between major party leaders. This is especially true of the Aleman-Ortega Pact. This pact was essentially a truce formed by Liberal leader Aleman and Sandinista leader Daniel Ortega, as both were facing numerous scandals and accounts of corruption. This pact worked to keep the two political giants in power. For example, one of the pact's proposals would establish the right of a departing president, which would be Aleman, and the presidential candidate who came in second place, presumably Ortega, to automatically hold seats in the National Assembly for 2 consecutive terms. This would assure them parliamentary immunity and protect them from prosecution on criminal charges. Nicaragua experienced a period of prosperity before insurrection took place in its society. For example, in the 1950s and 1960s, primary school enrollment grew 400% and infant mortality declined from 167 deaths per 1,000 live births in the period from 1950 to 1955 to 100 per 1,000 in the 1970s. However, during this time, a majority of the prosperity was going to the richest people, leading to the lower classes becoming more poor, causing opposition to the regime at the time and the United States-backed government.
Nicaragua recently nationalized the fuel distribution company DNP, 2 days after U.S. authorities sanctioned the firm for being used by President Daniel Ortega's family for personal enrichment through non-competitive contracts of government institutions. The bill was fast-tracked and approved by Ortega. This is the most recent showing of corruption within Nicaragua.
The U.S. economic assistance and cooperation among Central America led to the formation of the Central American Common Market, which Nicaragua was a part of. The economy kept growing and growing, especially during the 1960s and the 1970s, but soon came to a stop due to the cause of a massive earthquake. To even worsen the case of the economy, in 1973, spike in oil prices. This changed the lives for many citizens as it worsened their living conditions. Another important part of Nicaragua's history is the revolution. The revolution started in 1979 and is looked at the most important historical moments for Central America and its history. This began the Soma dynasty, which controlled Nicaragua for decades. As a regime, the Somas used violence and poverty to control their people. This oppression led to the revolution.